Kathleen Florance is a Midcoast artist who has explored a multiplicity of materials and concepts over the course of her 30-year career. The evolution from direct on-site drawings to the sophisticated abstraction of today has been a journey of exploration and determination. She is represented by the Caldbeck Gallery of Rockland. She's an alumni presenter from 2013, and she'll talk about how new material affected change in her art.
Okay. Hi. During the first 10 years or so of making art, I usually went outdoors 3 to 4 times a week just to draw. I've always loved drawing. That direct eye-hand process gives me the opportunity to really be curious about what is there before my eyes. So how does one get from this to this? Uh-oh, they're mixed up. No, they're not. Sorry, that's how I got there. The evolution of an art practice is such an interesting and personal journey that just by changing materials, a whole different thinking pattern can be opened up, and that in turn gives permission to take those important next steps. In the late 90s, after spending most of the spring and summer drawing and painting in an old orchard on Hatchet Mountain, better, thank you, I had one of those wonderful breakthrough moments when I suddenly saw the orchard, not as trees and branches and sloping ground, but as dynamic lines and metaphorical symbols. Forms and colors filled my visual spaces. From playing with oil paint on paper, like that first image, or working with acrylics combined with layers of oil pastels and marks of compressed charcoal, I'd found a new freedom of thought and expression. From a 100-foot wall of handmade paper installed at the Duck Trap River to the creation of a river of carefully chosen and arranged pine needles at Kingdom Falls, or to wet clay layered over a collage of multiple historical images and materials, and then left to dry and fall to the ground, the early 2000s brought a heightened exploration of my environmental interests and concerns. Each of these 3 installations, along with a 4th, where alternative education students explored art, science, and the environment, brought so many new materials into my vocabulary: papermaking, cloth, flowers, earth, pine needles, clay, wire, just to name a few. The opportunity to create 3-dimensional work forever shifted my thinking about how to organize space. These next 2 images were created after I had traveled to Bulgaria to exhibit the documentation of the protection installation. Frescoes, icons, and historical culture dominated so much of the art that I experienced there. I returned wanting to talk about that, so I mixed plaster with gesso to create a fresco-like surface for several of the paintings, and others I used oil paints layered with oil pastels. I also specifically designed and made this framing to reflect a Soviet industrial sensibility. For the next several years, I turned my focus to individual elements of nature, rather than the large geographical vision of the land. Starting with nests, I drew, painted, and abstracted. Not only what I saw, but now explored perceptions of purpose and structure. By using watercolor in a very free and expressive manner, and also taking my representational drawings and imposing other materials into its space, I was beginning to start a conversation of concepts much deeper than just what I saw. As I became much more comfortable with the idea of free expression, and by now also had 2 semesters of printmaking under my belt, I plunged into creating an idea. Here I used not only oil paints, but introduced elements of linoleum prints as well as the use of oil sticks. Next came bees, butterflies, and then wasp nests as my eyes, minds, and hands were filled with a newly found openness. Taking torn pieces of older and what I considered failed works on paper, I incorporated those mistakes into a new body of work that spoke to me of how we always carry our past with us. oils marked with charcoal, or acrylics on Yupo, which is actually a plastic, and then delineated their forms with lithographic crayon and ink. That now became my language. Taking what I had learned from the Wasp Spaces series, I added this element of geometry along with one new material, printmaking ink. By making this one simple change, I stepped into a whole new world of possibilities. Just as with that breakthrough moment of Summer Orchard, Tango became a huge artistic step forward for me. Imagery came not from what was within my visual field, but rather rose from all the stored experiences, the study and engagement with the natural world of years past. Combining that printmaking ink with the mark-making capacity of oil pastels allows me that occasional pleasure of scribbling. By taking that material in hand and applying it directly to a surface with no intervening process, the intellectual mind part of art certainly gets a nice break. Playing can be good. Always remember that. Playing can be good. Allowing the time and the mental space to just see what happens has, to me, been an extremely critical part of growing my art. The Tango series of the last 3+ years has taken me deeper and deeper into just how that beautiful world of color, form, and line can begin to become what we are experiencing around us and want to respond to. This is what is happening now in the offshoot series of Between, Symbols of Concern. Finally, I want to end the presentation tonight with this. One of the studies of milkweed that I did just last fall, that beautiful white silk that has eluded me for many, many years of drawing. I still love to draw. I love where it takes me. And actually, one never knows. Thank you.